Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Christopher Todd.
Roger McCormack with the Bronx Historical Society. Pleasure.
How does the Bronx Historical Society maintain the Poe House?
So the Poe House, which is the oldest Poe Museum in the United States, it's first opened in 1917. It's been administered by the Bronx County Historical Society since 1975. It's owned by the city Historic House Trust of New York, which deals with 23 historic houses. They help. There's 3 other Poe museums in the United States. 3 of them are houses that he lived in, one in Baltimore, the other in Philadelphia, and one here. And he was raised in Richmond, there's a museum there, but it was not a house he lived in. And the house we're in now, the cottage, dates to 1812. It was built by the Valentine family for farm laborers. And so Poe, even though he's famous in his own time, is very poor. He only pays $100 a year in rent to live here. And there were widening Eastridge Road at the turn of the 20th century. The cottage was going to be destroyed. And 2 very important civic groups, the New York Shakespeare Society and the Bronx Society of the Arts and Sciences, mobilized to save it. They created Poe Park in 1902, and in 1913 it's moved here. And it's opened as a museum 4 years later.
Could you give us a brief history on Poe?
So Poe, he's born in Boston. His mother, Eliza Poe, who's an actress, dies like his wife of tuberculosis. Poe is taken in by the Allan family of Richmond, Virginia. And John Allan was a wealthy merchant and a slave trader as well. And so Poe grows up in this very wealthy setting. He briefly used John Allan's help to get a commission at West Point. He drops out of there. But John Allan never formally adopts him. He's disowned. He's cut out of the inheritance. And he goes to Baltimore, where his Aunt Mariah Clem lived. That's where he starts to write his tales of horror, Gothic horror. Before that, he kind of viewed himself as an American Byron, a romantic poet. But as a result of his basically being disowned by John Allan, he has to kind of make his way, finds that he can make a bit more money writing tales of horror than he can just from writing poetry. From Baltimore, he goes to Philadelphia, which is arguably his height of his critical, creative success. And from there, he goes to New York. And it was his lifelong dream to have his own magazine, which he called The Stylus. At the time of his death in Baltimore in 1849, he was on a lecture series in the South trying to raise money for the magazine. And at the time, Fordham was all rural. It was then part of Westchester County. He moves here because his wife Virginia had tuberculosis. And the basic idea was that the clean country air would help her recover. And unfortunately it doesn't, and she dies here in the cottage in 1847. Poe himself dies 2 years later on the road in Baltimore in very mysterious circumstances. Despite kind of the misery from his wife's illness from tuberculosis, there is a real period where he's very happy here. They would play games in the yard. He was always happiest when he was with Virginia and his Aunt Mariah Clem. But he would write, Mariah Clem would bring him coffee. He would write here and upstairs in his little writer's garret. He walked along the Bronx River. He also went to a high bridge, which was a new bridge that built in 1848. It's the oldest bridge in New York City. And there was a new school that had opened in 1841 called St. John's College and becomes Fordham University in the 20th century. Poe liked to walk down there and hang out with the faculty. He paid them the due his compliments, saying that they smoked, gambled, drank, never discussed religion, like perfect gentlemen. Of course, our Jesuit priests. But they said they liked him. He's very interesting to converse with. He has many legacies. He was very influential on a number of genres, horror genre, science fiction, the detective story, which he is virtually credited with inventing. And on this bookshelf here, there's a book, The Sign of the Four, which is a Sherlock Holmes story. Arthur Conan Doyle says that without Poe, you don't have the detective genre, which Poe is credited with inventing his story, Birds and the Reward. It's really a continued fascination with him is that he was just not only very seminal for a number of works, but very original.
Coming here today, it felt like a step in history, especially with the cold outside. I could just imagine Poe being here on a cold January day with the flames
And that's why the ceilings are so low, by the way, so it's easier to heat.
Oh, I never. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Well, thank you. Nice to meet you, and thank you for taking the time.
Can you say your names and who you are?
Okay, that's Roy Schwartz.
And this is Danny Fingeroff. And I am the author of Is Superman Circumcised?
I've recently written a biography of Stan Lee. We're in what had been the Jewish Bronx of the 1930s. Bill Finger and Bob Kane. Many of the concepts thinking was Batman came from Bill Finger, but the other two of them would meet in Poe Park to discuss the characters and storylines because they both lived around here.
As Danny said, this was a predominantly Jewish neighborhood back in the 30s. Bob Kane was born Robert Kahn, and Bill Finger was Milton Finger. As legend has it, they developed Batman over one weekend, walking around Poe Park and hashing ideas. Bob Kane came up with the name Batman, and purportedly was inspired by Leonardo da Vinci's ornithopter, those hang glider bat-like wings. And
Purportedly is the important part.
right, everything with Mr. Kane is purported. We'll leave it at that.
So these guys were acquaintances more than friends, I think. But Bob Kane was a cartoonist, and he had just been told that Superman was a big hit, and we need something to follow it up. And he came up with a general idea for something called Batman.
His original design was a red bodysuit and black trunks and blonde hair and this kind of little domino mask. Little Finger pretty much contributed everything else. The costume, the background, the origins, the villains, Gotham City, the gadgets, the horror.
And look, we're in the shadow of Edgar Allan Poe, too. So a bunch of history and horror and shadows.
It works, right? He created detective fiction, basically. His Batman debuted in Detective Comics 27, May 1939. Batman was really the second real superhero. Superman was the first. Batman was the second, and he was the yin to Superman's yang. And every superhero since is more or less on the spectrum between those two.
Here's the story that many comic book creators have in common. Some were just plain poor. Nobody rich became a comic book creator in those days. So either they started out poor, or what's more common, not unlike the loss of the planet Krypton or the loss of Bruce Wayne's parents, is this common thread of the Jewish comic book creators of that generation, that they seemed like, oh, it's pretty good. Next day, we got nothing, sorry.
I think Danny's touching on something really interesting here, and that was part of that existential angst that gave birth, whether it's the origin of Superman or the origin of Batman. You have people who come here from the old country, the old world, where they're subject to problems and massacres. They start to prosper, they start to do well, they have the freedom to do so. All of a sudden, depression, everything gets taken from them. Rise of Nazism, there's this very palpable, real, daily existential angst. And for Jews, it's worse, because for most of the respectable creative industries, magazines, ad agencies, that kind of stuff, theater, won't let them in. And the comic book was really invented around here as well, in the Bronx. An out-of-work school teacher named Maxwell Ginsburg, has to move in with his family, back in with his mom in the Bronx, in this area. He finds all these old newspaper strips that he kept as a kid. Back then, you'd have the comic strips every day in newspaper, and once a week on Sunday, the full page in color. Sort of a light bulb goes over his head. What if I went to the newspaper syndicates and licensed these old, already printed comic strips and sold them as magazines on newsstands, and it becomes successful? But soon enough, they run out of material. There are only so many strips you can cut, paste, and glue and sell. So they start commissioning new content.
Is New York City Gotham?
Yes, I think New York City has got them, but I think it was also, the era of the Empire State Building. And
Legend has it that Finger came up with the name because he was looking through the phone book and saw Gotham Jewelers as what it was. Gotham City is an actual nickname for New York City, coined by Washington Irving. It has nothing to do with Gothic, by the way. That's just a homonym. It just sounds the same. Gothic architecture is a nickname given during the Renaissance that were attributed to the Visigoths, the Germanic tribes. That's where Gothic came from. But this comes from Old Anglo-Saxon Gatham, goat home. In British folklore, there's an actual place called Gatham. They tended to be crazy, so King George would pass through the town. Call a place Goat Home, Gatham. That was observed for the place being full of crazy people. Through the relationship of Bob Kane and Bill Finger and what happened, they ended up with two very different fates because of the relationship they had in creating Batman.
the myth is that Kane's father was a lawyer or an accountant. My understanding is that Kane's father was a printer who worked at the New York Daily News. And so he saw the kind of money the successful syndicated cartoonist made. At least he was able to say to his son, protect yourself and get a lawyer, get an accountant. And so he did, but Finger was never his partner. Finger, I guess, was his employee. He was part of the studio.
Bob Kane got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Bill Finger died penniless and obscure as an alcoholic. But then, sort of a campaign within the industry by Mark Taylor Nobleman.
There's a book he wrote as a Ty Templeman crew.
But the bottom line is, in October 2015, DC added Bill Finger, and since then, every appearance of Batman in comics or other media says created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger. And in December 2017, they named the street after him.
So this is called Bill Finger Way, I think.
Bill Finger Way on 192nd East and Grand Concourse. We're going to go see it now.
My name is Lloyd Oltan. I'm the Bronx Borough Historian Emeritus. They asked me, do you want to be the borough historian? And I said, well, let me think about it. Yes, that was in 1996. I have served as the borough historian until 2023. So I was born in the Bronx and grew up in the Bronx. So whenever my mother went shopping, the department stores that were then in the area, we'd come up here. At one point, she pointed out to me that this is where Edgar Allan Poe lived, and this is called Poe Park, and that's Poe Cottage. In 1846, Edgar Allan Poe came up here from his abode in New York City. Edgar Allan Poe was very poor. Consequently, Poe Cottage is a very unusual historic house. Here you can see what a poor person lived like, and if you see a house was a house of a wealthy person around the 1840s, you could see the difference in the way people lived at the time. In the early 20th century, the area became urbanized. Kingsbridge Road was widened, and Poe Cottage was in the path of the widening. A group of citizens got together, had the cottage moved further inward, so directly across the street from what is today Poe Park. There are buildings that were built, four-story buildings. Construction debris often fell down onto the roof of Poe Cottage. The American Shakespeare Society spearheaded the movement to move the cottage to what was then an apple orchard across the street and have it declared a park. And they moved it to the northern part of that park. As people started moving in the 1840s, and they moved in fairly rapidly because of the presence of Edgar Allan Poe. It attracted a number of literary people. It's like throwing a pebble in a pond. The ripple effect of Edgar Allan Poe is still going on. If we are to understand who we are as a people, we have to understand what made us what we are. We are the sum total of everything that came before us. We have that heritage, we add to it, and then we pass it on as a legacy to the next generation.
I'm Councilmember Oswald Felice. I proudly represent District 15 in the Bronx, which covers neighborhoods of Fordham Road, East Tremont, Belmont, West Farms, and many other vibrant neighborhoods. This was my go-to park every single day after school. I actually grew up right in front of it. Today I have the honor and the privilege of serving as the voice and serving as the council member of this community. And it's a privilege to be able to work and give back every single day and make this park a better park for our local residents. Me and my local neighbors love baseball, so we would find any place to play baseball, not only in front of the building, but also right behind us, where the bandstand is located. And we also used to play baseball right behind us as well. And I remember the home field, the home base, used to be next to the Edgar Allan Poe Cottage. So if the catcher missed the ball, it would go under the gates, and we would have to climb or go under the gates to get the ball. So a lot of fun memories.
Since you grew up right across the street, were you aware of Poe and the Batman aspect of the park?
I think a lot of local residents, including myself and my family, we were aware of the Poe house and some of the general history. But I didn't learn about the Batman history until very recently. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done to, inform the public about the history of the park, the history of the Poe Cottage, and so much more. This is a beautiful park, a vibrant park, very green. But there's a lot of steps that we could take to make it even more beautiful. We saw a lot of storms destroy some of our trees. And it's crucial that if we lose a tree, that we plant a new tree. Trees are important not only to make the park beautiful and provide shading when families want to picnic and enjoy the park, but they're also important to help clean our air. And one thing that I saw growing up right in front of the park is that we lost some trees and we never replaced them. So as council member, I'm going to be giving a lot of priority to tree planting right here in Poe Park to replace all the trees that we've lost in the past 10, 20 years. Last year, I was able to bring approximately $4 million to completely renovate and rehab this section of the park, including turning the pavement into green and also including making the bandstand a little bit more attractive and also renovating it. So that's this part of the park. But we also have the center of the park, the playground section of the park, to make it more attractive for our kids and also to modernize it, including bringing a sprinkler, which brings a lot of life to any park. So that's a big priority for me. We absolutely need to do everything we can to make sure that our parks are properly funded. Our parks are very important parts of our community. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers rely on them for so many things. Investing in our parks is investing in the future of our city.
My name is Jennifer. I am not a native of New York City, but I've been here for about 18 years, and I've lived in this neighborhood the entire time. Poe Park has always been here. It was kind of interesting for me to learn that Edgar Allan Poe's house is right there. It was interesting to find out that he was up here. I don't know the timeline. I have to be honest. I've never been into the house. It seems like I'm never over here when they're open. Other than that, I don't really know that much about him other than him being, very famous for it. It's quiet. It's quaint. Smaller park. I've been bringing my son here since I've had him. The dog comes, who's also too. We frequent this park often. There's not a lot of green areas in New York City, which makes them very important. Humans in general need to have that green, to have that nature. Here we play, we exercise, relax, get as much fresh air and sun as we can. I would like to see it better taken care of, generally speaking, by the people as well as by the city. I feel like the city neglects the parks that are here, especially the ones that are not located in Manhattan. They're not taken care of. What I like the most about Poe Park is that it's kind of centralized. It's a part of the community. There's a lot of things that happen here. Just the other day, they had like a giveaway for the prom dresses, which helps to give back to the community and make everybody come together.
My name is Shelly Wilson, and I'm here today in Poe Park because I'm one of the founders of Orisha Homes. And we have this great event today in Poe Park. It's our Veterans Appreciation Day. So we have this great festival going on. We have food, we have music, we have vendors to provide services for them. So I'm out here celebrating them. We adopted this park because it's underutilized. It's in a great space, and then at one point it was being taken over by homeless and unfortunately people who are drugs. And we can't fault them, but there was a space where they were hanging out. So we kind of brought life back into the park by bringing activities where we have free dancing that's always open to the community. Whether you participate or not, you see us dancing here for free, and then people would listen to the music. So it became a gathering place once again for the community.
My name is Pascal Pia. I'm the president of Orisha Homeless. So Orisha is in general from Africa, and they are deities that come together to take care of humanity, to make sure that humanity is up. And that's what we do. Like, it's a bunch of instructors and community members that come together to take care of each other. And as you see the name, Orisha Homeless, we want to make sure everybody's home. Now, because we're here, people are able to come out and not only exercise, but also participate in different types of activities. It brings family together because they're able to bring their family to the different outings.
I have been in the Bronx all my life. I live not too far from here. As an elementary school student, I remember actually visiting Poe Cottage. So this is a park that I remember growing up in, playing and utilizing it. And now as an adult, I'm still in the community, and now I can use it in a different way where I can actually help the community to utilize it more and revitalize it, because we're bringing life back to this community. We're working with the council member who is in the process of renovating the entire park. They have this big project coming up, and today we're here with Community Board 7. So we're partnering with so many people, bringing them to the park.
So we are in the process of creating Friends of Poe Park so we can bring more resources to the community. We can just forget about the drug problem and the homelessness and ride on Poe Park so people can see that we're here, we exist, and we need resources.
And all of that takes actual So being part of Friends of Poe Park, when you actually adopt a park, we get to see from kind of the beginning stages how volunteer work. We need parks to be our space. This is where we can get together, we can socialize, and we can enjoy the greenery. Look how beautiful today is. You know, we need more of this.
So just the satisfaction of seeing the increase in quality of life of the people that we engage is just awesome. Before us was dead, you would see the other side of the life. Now you're seeing the positive side.
And well, I would come here like from a stressful day, just grab a bench and just sit. Because as craziness is going around on Fordham Road in the Grand Concourse, this is a very peaceful place. I know we hear the music today, but this is normally a very peaceful place. And sometimes you just need to sit down and to distress. And that's what Poe Park is. Besides getting our party on, we have our classes. But it's a nice place to just sit and relax for a few.
Maybe you could talk a little bit more about the significance of Poe Park, the history with like the cottage, you know, the fact that Batman was invented here.
So I would refer you to the Poe Park
Yeah,
Historical
I've already talked to them.
for the history. I know Poe Park now, and I'm more interested in what I do now with Poe Park, getting the community engaged in different types of activities, and that's what we do, and then change it for the better.
I found a children's book about it. That Charles Dickens had a raven as a pet, and its name was Grip. And you know, Poe knew him, and you know, so that was part of the inspiration for the raven. And I was like, what? That's so cool.
Who's that guy?
That raven, Grip.
Please like, subscribe, comment, and share if you enjoyed this video.